Do we got audio? We got some of that there audio or what? Man, I can't tell. John, I'm a looking. I'm a looking. So, for all the no people watching right now, it's cold as a mofo out there and it's rainy. Two things I'm not into, being wet and cold. No, thank you. So I thought, instead of completely skipping out, which I seriously considered, um, thought, well, I can do quote unquote fireside chat minus the fire. Um, so let me pull up this. Let me pull up this thing. Pull up this thing. Pull this thing up here. And see what it's telling me. Yeah, Bill, fireside chat without a fire, bro. No fire, man. Um, so, and I'm trying to figure out if my audio is working. It looks like it's working. So, ultimately, it's freaking cold outside, man, and it's drizzly, and I'm just not. I wasn't. I was already not feeling great. So when I went out to go set the cameras up, I was like, yeah, no, this is not going to work for me. Um, which is funny because I was just going to set up in front of the induction forge anyways. But as I was working through, so I've picked up some new equipment. Well, I haven't actually picked it up yet, but I've got some new equipment coming. Um, so I need time to kind of get that stuff in place too. Um, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go through. There's a couple of videos popped up today that I wanted to kind of go through anyways. So we'll go. Let's watch it together. So people that have seen my forge stations at various events. I mean, I've always been pretty vocal about that. This is stuff that I've picked up from Brian Brazil, and Brian had just posted a video today showing his travel setup, his travel station, which is essentially the same setup I'm using. So we're gonna. So here's a striking anvil with a keyed anvil in there. Um, his TV tray. We use these to hold up a lot of our tooling. Got the forge here. Brian's forge. He's got it set up a little differently than I have mine, but he's got a tong rack on his with a swing out. He's using a champion blower. He's got a nice one. I don't. Mine's not quite this nice. Um, but I've got a nice little one that I really dig because it's really light. So um, I've got a bigger champion, but it's a nicer champion. I don't like lugging it around if I can help it, just because um, you know, on the road they tend to take a beating. Um, this is Brian's outdoor shop, and I gotta tell you, I'm a little envious of these sledges. I used one of these a couple weekends ago. I have since, I believe Brian told me Matt Marty had made one of those, so I have since reached out to Matt regarding getting one of the in a 12-pound range. So hopefully one of those will be coming my way soon. We'll see. Hey, that's a pretty good looking hammer right there. I don't know. I can't really see it too well. I think this is I think this is the one that Corbin and I forged when we were in Louisiana for Brian. Um, because there's a guy that needs a hammer forged by a couple of chuckleheads. I think that's it, though. It's hard to tell. I can't really make out a touch mark on that. Uh, Hard telling. That kind of looks like it. mean, I'm basing that off of the handle mostly too. It could be up here. I don't think that's it though. The one, but I'm sure Brian would let us know if he jumps on. Um, but what I don't know, so it's the same forge table that I use style with the swing outs. What the hell? Um, well, I don't know what happened there. Replay. Um, but the same swing out. But I've noticed his coil for his swing out is a little more stylish than mine. I'm a little jealous. I'm gonna have to do something about that. But I don't know what's going on up here. It almost looks like he's got some kind of um, refractory or fire brick up here, maybe to allow him. These fire pots, if he's using a similar fire pot as me, he might be using the Roger Lawrence pot. I use the RCBA pots, which are basically kind of a replication of the Roger Lawrence pot, anyways. But they're big fire pots. They're big fire pots. I mean, you can damn near get a 50-pound bag of coal in one of those damn things. Um, so by I don't know, blocking it up like this or whatever you want to call it, you can actually significantly reduce the amount of fuel that you're using in these. I've seen that before. Not exactly how Brian's got this one, um, but I've seen folks put fire brick in there before to kind of take up some of the room. So it's not, especially if you're working smaller stock, you just don't need that much fuel. Um, Now, if you're doing hammers and such, it's nice to have a pot that can take that much fuel. I think he mentioned it, but it looks like he's using charcoal. But I think he mentions it in the video. I forget. Yeah, he clayed it for charcoal, so there we go. That was a slick hammer. Yeah, I agree, man. That came out as that was a nice hammer. Um, we had done another one. I don't think it's here. I don't know what Corbin did with that one. We did another one. We used wider fullers in the troughs, and we used a top round swage on the flat die of the hammer to forge in the square face, which worked really well. I didn't think that was Jot's suggestion. The only thing with that, my takeaway from that is I think we went too many heats doing that, and then we should have probably knocked that back down a little bit. I would have been happier with it, but lessons learned. But it definitely did the thing. It just did the thing a bit more than I would like to have seen, but it worked out. So that's something we're gonna explore a little bit more, and see what else we can kind of do. The TV tray here. Brian's got these drifts stacked up. What has he got this sitting on? A piece of angle iron, it looks like. That's a pretty nifty idea. I have a steel box essentially that I kind of do the same thing with. I put it under my tray and then store my drifts. Actually, I store mine under my forge table, right under here. And then I have another one. It's a chip tray for machine shop actually, but I can put water in it. What's nice about that is I can put the drifts in handle first, and they won't drop down into the water. But that water helps cool the handles down because a drift, especially on bigger billets, they'll start to heat up on you. Um, So you don't really want to quench them. You know, cool the handles off, but you don't want to quench the drift they're working in. They will break. Ask K-Na about that. I think he was doing uh, it might have been in a Banner Zoom demo type thing, and he chucked one into a bucket, and it went down into the bucket, and then like the very next heat, first hit, that drift broke. It's like, oh, ouch. But yeah, I love the Champion 400s as far as the blowers go, and I will be honest. I have a pair, I think, maybe three, of Kennedy Auto blowers. Overall, from an overall operation, they are some of the smoothest blowers I've ever used, and they are definitely really nice blowers. They're smooth and quiet, but I like the way a Champion sits up against the table and the way it's oriented, so the exhaust on these is pointing straight down essentially. So you can kind of just come straight down and right over to your fire pot. I just like it tucks into your forge real close and tight. I just prefer it. Um, but my little one, the only thing I don't like about the little one is the stand is a little teetery. Um, but I love the fact that it is super light and it puts out plenty of air for a little. I think it's, I don't know, maybe an 8-inch housing on it. Super light though. Paul had one and I really liked it, so I made it a point last quad state. I bought one. There was a guy directly across from our campsite, and he had several restored Champions, and he had one of those small ones. I think I paid $150 for it or something. It's a nice little blower. I really dig it, and it's super smooth. And I've got a bigger. I got one similar to what Brian has here. I have one like this, but I just don't like traveling with it. It's heavy, but I'm just always worried I'll hurt it. I don't want to hurt it, so I don't like to leave the shop with it. So Brian's got his striking vise over here. I need to rebuild mine. Mine has just never been. The vise itself has issues. I've got another vise to rebuild a striking vise with, so that's probably what I'm going to do. That way I have something that's properly functional. Whereas mine requires some finagling sometimes. I think they're mostly small things that can be worked out. Um, but I'd like to get that fixed eventually. That's why I bought that other vise. Um, yeah. So yeah. Anyways, this is his station. You got the hot cut. You know, it's got a tool rack on there to put your hammers on, so you've got quick access to your hammers. Mild steel keyed in anvil. Um, these work fine. They work great. As you can see, Brian is very generous and lets almost anybody use these. You can see some dings in it, but nothing bad. And the edges are still nice on that. And it would not take much to clean this thing up. You know, if it became a problem, really, it wouldn't become a problem if you don't put a piece over these banged up marks and just keep wailing on it, and forge those marks into your work. But if you keep your work moving around, it would never be an issue. Um, but again, it's super easy to fix them up. I mean, if you get like a really bad ding, you just fill it with weld and then grind it back flat. Um, you know, you can peen over some of these dings, clean them up as well, and then hit with a flap disc and clean it all off, or take a file and draw a file on it and take the face back to something really nice. If you're in a hurry and you got a mill, put a fly cutter in and just take a little bit off the top, and just zip it right across the top, and that will clean the face up really, really nice. You just be careful with that. You can take too much if you're not careful. So I saw another video I wanted to pull up. Not at this Joker. Um, so let me see if I can find it real quick. But yeah, those are interested. Those forges, that setup is really simple to put together. In fact, I've got one. Um, well, I've got one. No, I've got more now. I've got like five, but I have one that I did a year or two ago. I made one for myself and Paul Kennedy, and they bolt together. Now, it's not without its problems. I mean, I could have done it better, but it works. You can just bolt it together. So you can take the bolts off and the legs come off. So it packs down really nice, and you can just bolt it back together when you're ready to use it. And they're just quarter-inch, bolts. So it doesn't take much. So if you're traveling around and you're going to different events, it's nice to have something like that, because they're easy to set back up, easy to pack around. Um, and if you make several and you keep them all the same dimension, what's really nice is you can put them back to back. You can make a bigger table out of one if you really wanted to. If you're working with a friend, you can set them up back to back so you can talk to each other while you're working. You know, um, it's it's pretty handy. So let me see if I can find that other videos. Um, they were. This is Harbor Freight. I don't know why these Harbor Freight anvils keep popping up. I think this is an older video. Another video from Roy, but like this is an older one, I think. As far as cheap anvils go, I mean, for what they are, they're fine. If you're looking, if you've been struggling to find something to start with, these are fine. I'm not a huge fan of them, for multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is this. This right here, I hate this for some reason. I just hate that. And then the Hardy is doo-doo. That should be 1 inch, in my opinion. I don't know why they don't. But if you're looking for a starter anvil, Holland Anvil makes nice anvils. Their 100-pound anvil's really nice. The double horn, 100-pound double horn. It's one of my favorite anvils in my shop. There's a, you know, yes, they're expensive. I ain't gonna lie, they're expensive, but they're American made, and those dudes are just up the road a ways. So I know where they at. I know those guys. I know Greg. Um, and he's been nothing but super generous to me. Um, I placed an order with the RCBA group and bought like 4 fire pots, and Greg was down at their conference, and he was kind enough to drive those back up to Indiana on his way home, and I met him on the highway somewhere at a Lowe's truck stop, and and I was able to get those from him at that time. Otherwise that would have cost me a 6-7 hour drive to go down and pick those up myself. So Greg was super generous to do that, and then he also sent me a couple years ago for my first hammer in. He sent me a couple of swage blocks to give away in my iron in the hat. And then two years ago at the IBA conference, he threw a swage block at me. No, he didn't. He chucked one out the back of his truck in my general direction and just gave me one. And then he had that 100-pound anvil, so um, I bought it from him then, brought it home, um, and I really enjoy using that guy. And it's nice, it's 100 pounds. It's light enough. It's not something I'm going to pack around all the time, but at the same time, it's still light enough that I could pull it off of the stand and pack it and take it with me if I wanted to, and it's not dreadful. Where I got a 250-pound ruffling house, that's a different story. Pulling that off the stand and put it in my truck would be dreadful. I would have to use my tractor or the crane in my shop. I'm not trying to lift I've got a Ram 2500, so I'm not trying to lift a 250-pound anvil up to my chest to get it into the back of the truck because that damn thing's so tall. Um, no, thank you. Um, but 100 pounds, not that big a deal. It's just ain't great, but not it's not that brutal. But it ain't. But those Doyles, for the money, honestly, if it, if it if it removes your excuse for starting, then I'd say, go get yourself one. Go down to Harbor Freight and pick one up, man. They're for what they are, for the money, they're great starter anvils. I don't think that can be argued all that much. In fact, Paul took one and he made it so that he can key it into his striking anvil. So if you were at Quad State back in October, if you were at Quad State, you would have seen it in our camp. So when those pesky knife guys show up and start wailing on tool steel on a mild steel anvil at a knife bladesmith heat, they're not dinging up a mild steel anvil like they are on that Doyle. It's got a hard enough face that it can kind of take that abuse a little bit better. So for the naysayers on the mild steel anvil, it's an easy solution. Just forge yourself an anvil block out of something like 4140 or 1045, and you can quench that, and then you've got a hardy tool that you can use on those anvils. But honestly, if you keep your material hot, it shouldn't be a problem. But there's always that one person that's got to say something. So for you, I say put that in your pipe and smoke it. Um, so Friday we're going to be heading over to the Warriors Way Expo. I don't know, is it the Expo? But it's like their grand opening at the new building. But we're heading over there on Friday, so we should be there late afternoon Friday. I, we'll be setting up shop, our setups, and we'll be available, Friday evening. I don't know what the whole schedule looks like, but come Saturday, most of the day Saturday, we'll be available there to help people forge stuff. So if we need to do hammers and such like that, we'll be available to do some stuff like that. So, if you've got a project that where you could use a hand with, keep us in mind and come on out and let's see what we can do. I can't make you any promises, but other than it'll be fun. I'll promise it'll be fun. Um, we always strive to make it fun. If it's not fun, then why are we doing it? That's the way I look at it. So, as far as knife making goes, that's not really my thing. Brian actually has, let me see if I can pull it up. Brian actually has a good little demo. It's pretty old at this point, and he's using clay, but he's showing you how to forge a knife. It's the same principles. Um, I've actually kind of toyed with the idea of forging a knife in this style. Let's see if I can find it. This damn thing's going to make me do a search. I can feel it. Yeah, here we go. So Brian's got a pretty good video, but he's using a big chunk of clay to kind of, show you the basic steps of forging a knife of, let's say, round stock. Um, so so forging a knife with the ricasso. You could use similar techniques doing with this, and then do the integral bolster on the blade. Um, so I wouldn't mind forging a knife like this. This is kind of funny. I had a neighbor come by tonight, and he had asked me about knives, and I was like, no. And I kind of realized I'm kind of I'm growing tired of telling people no, I don't forge knives. Um, I feel like I'm opening Pandora's box, but I'm not against the idea of forging. My problem with knife making isn't forging the knife. That's the easy part, in my opinion. The forging aspect of it is the easy part. It's the fit and finish is where I kind of like, oh, I don't really want to go through all of that. But at the same time, like like today is a great example, right? Where it's just so cold, it's cold enough that I just don't want to be out there. But I could technically set up a little station down here in my basement and do a lot of the filing and stuff like that. I could set it up over by my stove, my wood stove, so get a fire going in the wood stove and be set up next to it and work next to that, and do some of that stuff. I think that could be a way to kind of keep myself busy, especially in the wintertime. Um, you know, and I've got grinders. Yes, I could do a lot of grinding work, but what I've discovered with a grinder is it's really quick to go um, overboard with a grinder really quick. And I just don't have that kind of control with my grinder right now. Um, Practice makes perfect, I guess, but um, I feel like I could do a lot less damage with a file, um, especially if you get some good files. Which Bill Corey actually gave me a really nice file last year. So, a good excuse to use it. Um, Knife making aside, I don't want nobody to think Rob's going to become a knife maker. That's not really the goal or intent, but I'm not ruling it out. But along the similar lines, a friend of mine visited me a few months ago and brought me a really nice tool chest that I need to forge some hardware for eventually. But when he brought that out, he also showed me this set of Japanese chisels he had bought, and I thought, man, there's no reason I can't forge those, you know. Other than I just don't know chisels, but I could. I don't think it would take a whole lot of research, and based off of what I saw of them, and it looks like something that could be enjoyable to forge. A buddy of mine has done it. He's made some really nice ones. Um, so I wouldn't be opposed to forging out some good chisels, wood chisels, and then the Japanese style chisels. I really liked some of the features on that. So would not be opposed to that going forward. I play with that a little bit this year. We'll see. We'll see. Um, there's just a little research I think I would want to do. Another thing is forging blades for a plane. You know, I've got some planes, wood planes somewhere, and I wouldn't mind picking a few up and maybe even forging the blades for those, um, just for fun. Fun, you know, restore an old wood plane with some hardware that you made for it, you forged for it. I think would be kind of cool. And I'm not huge into the restoration thing either. That's another thing, right? I've always been a big fan of buying a thing to do the thing that it's going to do the thing I want it to do right out of the gate. I don't want to spend a lot of time having to like restore it. I don't have a lot of interest in that. I mean, I find it interesting in terms of the folks that do it, but from a personal standpoint, that's not something I want to spend a lot of time on. You know, when I buy the thing, I want it to do the thing. You know, usually when I buy something like a bandsaw, it's because I have applications for it in mind. So when I bring it into my shop, I want it to do that thing. I don't want to have to spend a lot of time on fixing the son of a bitch to make it do the thing I want it to do. I've got a bandsaw outside of my shop right now, kind of sitting in that situation. It really wouldn't take a whole lot to quote unquote restore it. It's mostly electrical things going on with it. I think Paul and I have rewired and wired that thing, God, at least 8 times now, trying to get it to work. Not a lot of luck there. But the reason I hang on to it is because, as far as bandsaws go, it's a beefy boy. It is beefy. So getting it up and running with coolant would be pretty sweet, and it's already set up for that for the most part. So I haven't ruled it out, but I've got a lathe, for instance, that needs to be restored. I have zero interest in trying to restore that lathe. When I have three that I can just use, I just don't really want to do that. You know? Um, I have a surface grinder that needs to be quote unquote restored. It took a fall, so it's got some parts on it that they need to be replaced. So restore might not be the correct word for that. Might be rebuilt. Um, and I have almost no interest in doing that because I really don't have a lot of use for a surface grinder right now. I would rather take that kind of time to forge stuff. That's just rather where I would rather spend my time. You know, that's just me. So I don't know if it's weather related or if it's like allergies messing with me, but I've been for the last 2 weeks. About 2 weeks ago, the only way I can describe it is essentially paralyzed with a migraine. Like I was next to useless for 2 days in a row. Like I had never experienced anything like that before. I mean, it just put me down. But ever since then, I've been kind of fighting off um, a persistent headache. It's not nothing like the migraine, but it's like a very persistent headache that just doesn't want to go away. Um, so, I mean, like today, it's there. It's not bad, but like a couple of days ago, it was there, but it was bad. But it wasn't a migraine. It wasn't like it was, but it's just very annoying. And and I'm not prone to headaches in the first place, so it automatically turns me into a giant wussy. Um, I just don't respond well to that. But I feel like it's a sinus related thing. Like this morning when I woke up, like my nose was running and I couldn't get it to stop. And it's that kind of headache where it feels like it's in the back, like right up in here. It's pushing up against my eyes, kind of thing. And I'm just wondering, somebody suggested some kind of allergy medicine, and I might try that just to see. Um, but that's something else I've never really dealt with was allergies or anything. Um, my fear, if we want to call it a fear, is I was grinding in a lot of hickory handles without um, without, a mask. And I'm wondering if I didn't cause myself some issues because of that. Um, so lesson learned. Not really. I'm stupid, so I'll do it again. I know me enough to know. Oh, Facebook. Why you do this to me, Facebook? Here we go. Hang on. I gotta go to Facebook and fix the stupid settings. Brian's gonna tell you why to use a rounding hammer here. Pay attention, y'all. So let me come up here. Edit audience. Public. So if you commented from Facebook and I didn't respond just because I didn't have the settings set correctly, I apologize. I'm not ignoring you. Well, maybe a little bit, not ignoring you on purpose. But they should come through now. This is actually kind of a video. Brian does much better explaining what's going on here, but I've been wanting to kind of do a edited video and showing some of the uses of the different dies available to you using a rounding hammer. But I caught myself doing this in a video once. And a lot of people don't understand when I bring the hammer down why I bring it down the way I do. So I was actually explaining that to somebody a few days ago, last week I think, trying to explain to it. But I don't necessarily think that translate. I think you really need to see it. And I think this video really does a great job of showing that off if you're paying attention to what's happening. So, and again, like I said, Brian does a really good job here explaining a lot of this. But he uses some techniques. Pulling this leaf out, I think is pretty cool. And I always try to tell people when we get into this, using these dies as cross peens or straight peens, it's not something that I would do all the time if I had a lot of those to do. That's it's not something I would do for everything. If I had to make 200, of this leaf that Brian ends up forging, if I had to do like 200 of these, no, I can guarantee you I'm going to switch to a cross peen at some point. But where I find the strength in this technique is if I'm just doing one, I don't need to switch my hammer out to do that, I still wouldn't need to. And you can get good with this process, especially the more you do it. But again, if I'm doing 200 of them, I'll probably use a cross peen instead. But then I have to switch hammers, so you have to ask yourself which one is truly more efficient at that point. You're kind of getting into that realm of, I want to say it depends. And I'm not talking about Mr. Trump and his depends, but in this situation, it's contextual. Depends on what you're doing, and how effective you are with the techniques, or so on and so forth. Like I have a cross peen, certain leaves that I prefer to use, but I can do the same thing with my rounding hammer. So I would highly suggest you watch some of these older videos, because I think there's a lot of there. So here's a great example. I've watched this video. I wish there was a counter in here that would show you how many times you've watched the video. I've probably seen this video over 200 times. You know, if you really pay attention, you can, in a lot of ways, you can catch something new every time you watch it. I did. Um, there's like little things, and I think, and I think any blacksmith, any professional in their trade, you're going to see similar things, right? Where a lot of times they're doing something that they don't necessarily. Oh, that was a sweet sneeze. But a lot of times it doesn't matter, like he it could be a machinist had been doing it for 40 years. Where I think a lot of times they might do something that they don't necessarily realize that they're doing. It doesn't occur to them to call out that they're doing it. It's just because they've been doing it for so long. It's just like a second nature kind of a thing. So you kind of have to really watch them. And then if you see it, if you don't understand it, that's when you stop them and ask, yo, help me understand what and why. Help me understand why if you don't understand it, right? So you can see where Brian is barring that piece up, and you can see he's lighting this end up right here. He's barring it up is what he's doing. I've shown this before too. Brian's doing a much better job than me just because I learned it from Brian. But back that up a hair. You could see he was lighting that up as he was going. It's always fun too, It's like this is one of those moments where you want to, you know, inject. The crowd goes wild as you start doing that, and you start lighting up that little section. Like right there. Look at that. Every hit, boom. You can see it boom, right there. And you can do that on both edges in many ways. But so if you don't fully understand, that's when you ask them about it. Because a lot of times, I mean, but this particular case, I get it, but not everybody would. There might be something going on that you don't, but if you see it, they might not realize that they're doing it. So it's good to ask, you know, because a lot of times, like I said, when we're doing things, it doesn't occur to us that you don't know, or what I'm doing is something you haven't actually seen, or so on and so forth. Like in person, I watched Brian one time. Everybody seems to think that Brian always chokes up on his hammer, which he does not, by the way. But one time in person, when he went up, his hands, so the handle slid up his handle or his hand, so he was basically on the very end of that handle. But when he came down, the handle slid back down into his normal, quote unquote, choked up position. I don't necessarily think Brian realized he was doing that, but I just saw it one day and I was like, whoa, you know. And then I just started trying it myself, and then I realized, okay, sweet, I get it. It's just little things that you got to watch and really pay attention to, and you'll see it, in a lot of guys doing various work, depending on what they're working on, especially if they do a lot of things a lot. They're sometimes they just don't think because it doesn't occur to them, right? It's just something they've always done. But like I said, I've watched this video, God, probably 200 times, and I see something new almost every time. And he has since released um, a similar video, but he's using aluminum. And what's really cool about that is you can really see what what you should be doing and how the material responds. You can really see it with the aluminum. And that's one of the cool things about doing that. In an aluminum or even like in a copper, not always a copper, but the tongs that he did in aluminum, what's because you can really see it moving and what those set downs and those isolations look like, at a lower heat. You can really kind of spot that and hone in on that. I think that was a clever video to do, and a clever use of the aluminum there. Um, uh, so same with these some of these other things he does, and like I was watching this one day, a couple days ago, and I've attempted these calla lilies like this before, but there's some steps in here I had missed, and I was like, oh, well, that's why I'm screwing that up. Not entirely. Some of it was just terrible hits, but some of it was like, oh, hey, I completely skipped that part of it. That would probably make it a little easier. And I look for things like this in various forging videos all the time. I was watching today, actually, some of these Grant Sarver videos. Um, I don't know what the Naked Blacksmith is, but Grant Sarver's YouTube channel, is Naked Anvil. Um, Naked Anvil, I think. It, I don't know why. YouTube's search algorithm is so strange sometimes. Oh, well, this should be good. Master, Blacksmith, and Striker. Okay. I don't know who these people are. I don't know qualifies anyone as a master blacksmith, but I can tell you from what I'm seeing, as far as the striking goes, I just I don't see, as far as master blacksmith goes, he's got this person banging flats, man. There's more efficient ways with a striker to draw this material out if that's what they're trying to do, because this doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot. Like I can do better than this with just a hand hammer. So, I mean, I don't mean to be overly negative. Um, Peter Bruner, Ramona, somebody or other. I don't know. I'm not trying to be overly negative. I just, when I see stuff like this, it's like, the only thing that can make this worse is if this anvil is rocking back and forth, which I've seen. Now, when your anvil's is high up, though, the striking technique that she's using is, I would consider fine. Um, it's just the way the material is being presented for her to hit. I would take issue with that to a degree. But it is what it is. He's the master smith here, so he clearly he has an objective for this person. Um, I just Yeah, it's whatever. Um, I've seen some videos. in the past, I've had people tell us that what we're doing is wrong. So I've asked, could you provide examples of the right way to do it? Um, Most of them have not been overly convincing to me. Um, I mean, sure, if your objective is to not move material, then I guess you could say that's the right way to do it. Um, Anvil orientation. All right, so this is Roy Adams from Christ-Centered Ironworks presenting the orientation of your anvil. This is what I would consider the quote-unquote traditional orientation. I'll take issue with that, Roy. The correct. No. I've decided for myself that that is not the correct orientation that the anvil should be. Um, However, I know that a lot of folks think that this is the quote unquote correct orientation. It depends on how you work. I don't work this way, and I don't find this to be overly efficient. And I've explained my reasons for that in the past. I don't have an issue overall with this, but I understand the idea behind it. Your tongue hand is over the horn because that's where you're working. Blah 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 blah. I get that. Yeah yeah yeah. Um, but for me, your hammer swing is crossing your body, um, and I think that's an inefficient approach. That is not what for me not the correct way. But he states in the video, decide for yourself. Yeah, get on there and work and decide for yourself what works for you. Um, Somebody in the stream a couple of weeks ago or last week had said something about isn't something supposed to be. I always take issue anytime when I hear somebody tell me something is supposed to be. No, um, no. What's supposed to be is what works for you. That is what's supposed to be. So if it works for you, then do that. Now, you can try these other orientations, these other stances at the anvil, and give them a try and find one. You might decide, you know what, this is dumb, or you might go, man, this is really working well for me. Guess what? Then that's the one you should probably be using. Something that takes something away takes away a complexity and makes something simpler and provides you with the results that you're hoping to accomplish or achieve without making it an overly complicated process, then if that works for you, do that. Do that. You know that's what I say. Do that. Um, is there anything else in here? A blacksmith's anvil. Essential Craftsman. I started out learning a lot of stuff from him. Um, and I'm not trying to like naysay anything that other folks are doing here. That's not really my goal. Um, Chandler Dickinson was one of the first YouTube channels that I started watching, and that dude really inspired me. And I think I called this out in the Derek Melton podcast that I don't mean it to sound bad, like a backhanded insult. That's not really the case. I really do credit that content for getting me started. But a big part of it was and I'm sure that Chandler, if you were to sit down and talk to him about some of those older, the older, the the older content, that there was a lot of times when you could tell he clearly didn't know what he was doing. He was just trying to figure it out, and I think in some cases he did that. So when I saw that stuff, I thought to myself, man, if this dude could do it, then I have no excuse, you know. So he really kind of gave me that push I needed. There were other guys, Alex Steele, Chandler, Essential Craftsman, um, John Switzer at Black Bear Forge. To a large degree, were all inspirational dudes that I watched. Brian was another one that I started watching, very inspirational. Joey Vandersteeg was another blacksmith online that I would watch a lot of. Um, there, and I still go back and watch some of that stuff today. Um, I will say some of it can be a little frustrating to watch today, knowing what I know now with the experience I've got now. There are times where I want to throw my shoes at the TV. Um, there are other moments where I find quite amusing. One of my favorites um, are people that do reviews of other blacksmiths' work, like tongs, for instance. There's at least two instances of this I have seen, three. Brian's Ultimate Tongs, where I've seen two different guys make attempts at making the Ultimate Tongs, and they've failed utterly at making Ultimate Tongs. And then they proceed to critique Ultimate Tongs based off of their shoddy replications of them. And that blows my mind. Like how can you do a shoddy replication of somebody else's work and then critique it from there? Like that blows my mind. Same with hammer eye tongs. I've seen a lot of people critique hammer eye tongs and then proceeded to make them in their terrible attempts at hammer eye tongs. And then they're critiquing them, and it's like, but you didn't technically make a pair of hammer eye tongs, the correct ones. So Black Bear Forge kind of did something similar with he was comparing his method for punching an eye in a hammer billet, and I believe his process was to drill a series of holes and then punch between those holes using a quote unquote slot punch. And then he used a quote unquote Brian Brazil style hammer eye punch. It was not, if you looked at the punch he used, it was not a, a Brian Brazil style punch. I mean, it was a poor representation of that. Like the basic idea was there, but it was poorly executed. But he proceeded to punch the hole, and if you watch that video, and in the comments section, somebody asked him, "Hey, of the two, which one did you think was better?" Blah blah blah, and he was like, "Well, I didn't notice any difference really between the two. No real difference." And I think I responded to that comment and said, "Maybe you should go back and watch your video, dude, because it's clear which one was more efficient for multiple reasons, but." The biggest reason was when he went to go drift that hammer, he was banging on it and banging on it and banging on it and banging on it. Is because his drill and slot punch process didn't set that hammer eye up out of the gate, where using a Brazil style hammer eye punch kind of sets your eye up out of the gate for being drifted easily. It accepts a drift much more easily, because the punch essentially has the correct taper and it is sized appropriately. So it was a pretty humorous video to me. It was one of those ones where I wanted to throw my shoe at the TV when I was watching it. But and again, if you ever decide to critique somebody else's work, you know, and you make it and critique it, at least make it right. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not going to critique Liam Hoffman axes. I'm not going to try to make a copy of one of his axes and then proceed to critique the axe. Because well, I already know I couldn't forge an axe just as nice as Liam's. So why would I do that? That's craziness. But people seem to think that they're in a position to do that, I guess. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. But Naked Anvil Forge, I think is what the channel was called. I can't find it right readily available, but it's Grant Sarver's thing, and he's got a couple of videos in that are really interesting. Um, but what I really like, the Mississippi Forge Council, they do a really good job of publishing videos from their demonstrators. IBA, I hope you're paying attention. This is something I think the IBA could do better. But they do a good job of publishing these videos. In fact, they've got a whole mess of them. So if you're ever looking for some good YouTube content to go check out, go do a search for the Mississippi Forge Council, and you'll find some good videos out there. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and call it. It's late, um, and my head hurts. So I will catch y'all later, and then hopefully I will be set up next week to do an actual stream. Hopefully